All right, now let's get reaction. We're now joined by Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, founder of The Gift of the Givers. Dr. Sooliman, thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show. Now, as we explore the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, so close to Ramadan especially, I mean, just your reaction to the news that firstly, the US has called for a ceasefire, and secondly, as you've heard in that previous report, they're now planning to build this temporary port on Gaza's Mediterranean coast to receive humanitarian aid by sea, and as we've heard, that could take weeks.
Time wasting. That's one direct answer to say. Time wasting, deception, lies, playing to the gallery. That's the nation that blocked every ceasefire resolution when it was asked for. What are they going to do now? Send food in the morning? The same country that supplies weapons to Israel, and say, people, have a nice meal in the morning, we'll kill you in the evening. Is this what they're trying to tell the world? We don't need that port. We don't know how long that's going to take. There are systems that have worked for years. All you need to do is put a ceasefire and open the borders from Egypt. And 800 to 900 trucks a day can go through, which will be adequate. Not immediately, but over a period of days, it will do the job. It's not only about putting a port and sending trucks across, because once it's coming across, there's not enough fuel. There's not food, there's heat to cook. There's no water to cook. The roads are not passable. People are getting bombed as they went for flour. They're getting shot by tanks and snipers and being driven over. You need a ceasefire more than you need anything else. Be brave, Biden. Go back to the Security Council and say, I made a mistake for the last 150 days by blocking every ceasefire resolution, and say America calls for a ceasefire. That's what you should do, and stop wasting time in matters like this, where we can do it without American port and without their help, to be honest.
And Dr. Sooliman, let's paint that picture. You know, as you say, this is a time-wasting exercise given the need that is there. I mean, your organization has been on the ground in Gaza. One of your staffers was sadly killed, Ahmed Abbasi, as well as his brother, I remember at the time. I mean, when we look at what is currently happening, I mean, the World Health Organization saying that most of the enclaves, 36 hospitals have stopped working. So there's only 12 that are partially functioning, 6 in the north and 6 in the south. What does this then mean in terms of humanitarian organizations such as yourself when it comes to having then to come in during a war?
Well, we are inside. We haven't only lost Ahmed Abbasi, and who's a pharmacist, and his brother who doesn't work for us, but who's a doctor. Our teams have lost 175 family members inside. And under that situation, when they've seen their family members die, it's emotional and psychological trauma. It's not only my team. It's all the Palestinians and the teams and the healthcare workers and humanitarian workers of all the organizations trying to do some good. The UN workers and even the journalists have lost their lives trying to tell the story. So yes, it's very, very difficult and very complicated from an emotional and a psychological point of view. That's the first issue. The second thing is, as I said, you need the food to get in. But it will be like taking whole tons of food and park it off in one area because it can't move to other parts of the country. And the part that needs it the most are the people in the north. And if you try to move beyond a certain point, you get shot at by the Israeli forces, by the tanks and their snipers. We get so many messages from people in different buildings in the north saying, we are hungry, our children are dying, children have died. But you can't get there, simply because the road is not passable, and it's high risk that when you try to move, you get shot. And then, of course, you don't have enough vehicles because all the vehicles have been bombed. And you don't have enough fuel because there's no fuel. So those become logistical challenges. It's not only about food. People are, the hunger is one issue. But there are ill people, as you mentioned. 36 hospitals, there is probably not even 12. It's 3 to 6 only partially functional. But those patients, many chronically ill patients, the elderly need food to survive, for the medication to work, for them to have an effect from the medication. Children have died, the sick elderly have died, the sick all have died, because there is no facility, there's no food to nourish them for the treatment itself. And in addition to that, there are kids with diarrhea, there are kids with diseases that have come because of malnutrition and hunger. that children with respiratory disease, adults with respiratory disease, that can't be treated because there's no medication. It's raining, they're wet, they don't have clothes to change, they're living with the same clothes for the last 2 to 3 months. They're not warm, and all that has an impact on it all. So it's very easy to say, we're going to put a port and food. What about all these other issues? Almost 80,000 people require medical care. Most of them will die. What about those under the rubble? Mm-hmm. And with starvation, it's a very slow death. So the simple solution, they need a permanent ceasefire. They don't need to discuss anything else, to be honest.
And I mean, just mentioning the issue of starvation, I mean, these warnings were there. You know, the UN warned that the reality of famine is becoming even more increasing. You know, the fact that children will succumb to this. We're hearing now at least 15 children have died over the past few days, you know, just simply from starvation. You know, as we look at that, and also the talks that were ongoing in Cairo, which have now stalled, we understand that, you know, no agreement has been reached, you know, so far. And the picture that you are now painting in terms of immediate ceasefire, what does that mean in terms of the realities that they now face in as far as malnutrition is concerned, disease that is also being, you know, a true reality, 12 hospitals servicing both the north and the south. What is the reality until that particular solution by the US that it's suggesting?
The reality is that more people are going to die. That's just a blunt fact. Because to run hospitals, you need fuel, you need electricity, and you need medical personnel. Most of that experienced medical personnel have been killed. Some have been kidnapped. We don't even know where they are. And many of them have been just shot on sight when they came to the hospital, when the Israeli troops came in there. So a lot of the healthcare, the institutional knowledge, the experience of years is gone. It's dead. It's finished. You know, it's people trying to make do with the situation when there's no anesthetic, there's no antibiotics, no medicine. Yes, you're doing Band-Aid jobs for some major type of intervention that's required. So in the event of a ceasefire not taking place, what's happening will continue to happen. What's happened in the last 155 days. People will continue to die. People will suffer. In addition to being injured and dying from infection and bombs and bullets, and you know, they will die from hunger. And they will die from more infection, and they'll have more pain and more suffering and more emotional and psychological trauma. But the alternative, do you want to ceasefire and we lose all your dignity, where after 4 weeks, they start bombing you the same way they bombed you for the last 155 days? You release 40 hostages, they take in 2,000 people on the West Bank and lock them up, children and teenagers. What value is there in a solution like that? Sorry, I'm a blunt guy. I cannot agree to any solution where people keep getting taken away as prisoner, where children are being held prisoner, where youth are being held prisoner, and no charges are laid to them. And the world keeps emphasizing, what about the hostages? What about the prisoners that you've been holding for so many years, Israel, that you've locked people up, you know, unjustly for weeks? People don't know where their parents are, they don't know where their children are, they don't know where their family are. 3 of the family members of one of my staff are missing. They're locked up in different prisons in the West Bank. So there is no solution. Normally, if the Americans want to do something and the Western powers want to do something, very easily they commit troops to the ground. We will come to the ground, we will bring a ceasefire, we will deliver aid, we will stop the war. Funny, you can't do that when Israel is concerned, but you can do that anywhere else. Go to the United Security Council and say, we as Americans declare ceasefire. Then you're a true leader, not this Mickey Mouse business that you're talking about of building a port and trying to bring aid in a few weeks from now. And how many more children are going to die in that time?
Dr. Sooliman, thank you so much for your time. A difficult conversation to have. Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman is the founder of The Gift of the Givers. And of course, he says the only solution there for the people of the Palestinians in Gaza is for a ceasefire.